All right, everyone, we might get underway. Welcome everyone. Tonight we are here for a seminar to be presented by Tal Tsfany. This seminar is a joint effort of the Western Australian Legal Theory Association, WALTA for short, and the Civilisationists. My name is Joshua Forrester, and I'm a committee member of WALTA. I'm also the editor of the West Australian Jurist for WALTA's publication. I'll be the MC this evening, and then filling in for the president of WALTA, Professor Augusto Zimmerman. The reason Augusto cannot be here this evening is that he had to fly to Brazil urgently to be with his father, who is gravely ill. Now, many of you know Augusto, and I would ask you to keep him, his father, and his family in your thoughts and prayers in this difficult time. As to the Civilisationists, I would like to acknowledge Joe and Marion of the Civilisationists, who have played a major role in organising this event. Not only have they organised the ticketing, but they've also organised the light refreshments available outside. So please join me in thanking Joe and Marion for their time and efforts. Now, to the speaker. It is a very great privilege to welcome Tal Tsfany to speak to us tonight. Tal is the President and CEO of the Ayn Rand Institute and has a background as an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. He is the founder of the Happiness Team Workshop and the Happiest Man Alive podcast. His work relates to legal philosophy and focuses on objectively advancing happiness through making philosophy clear and actionable. Tal will be speaking to us tonight on the subject of the moral case for liberty. So I will now invite him to the front, and please join me in welcoming.
Hello everyone, good evening. Thanks for inviting me all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. It's the first time in Australia. I'm having a great time. We started in Melbourne, then Sydney. Now we're here. We're going to end up our tour in Brisbane. And can't tell you how much support we're getting, and everywhere we're going there are a lot of engaged people. I didn't know there were so many Ayn Rand fans in Australia, but there are. Who here read Atlas Shrugged, just so I know the level of familiarity? Okay,
I've watched the movies, does that count?
No, the movie doesn't count. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today, and actually for those who have been in my talk yesterday I talked about happiness. Today I'm going to talk about politics and liberty. But if there will be a little bit of time, maybe I'll end with happiness, because I'm sure each and every one of you not only wants to change the world, but improve your own life. So I can talk about both issues. Okay, so let's start with the moral case for liberty, between freedom and happiness. Okay, so what I invite you to do tonight is to open your mind a little bit. I'm going to introduce some new ways of looking at things, new perspectives, that could shed a new light on things that you already know. But if you think about those things from that perspective, it might look different, or suddenly make more sense, again, from a different perspective. I want to start with my own personal story, so you understand where I'm coming from, the kind of person I am and why I gravitated towards Rand's philosophy. I was born in Israel, in Beersheba, if you know where it is. It's in the south of Israel, to a very conservative family. And at the age of 6, I was given this thing, the Jewish yarmulke to put over my head. My grandmothers told me, now it's time to put it over your head, and I asked why. Why do we put this piece of cloth over our heads? And she said, because you have to respect God. God is looking at you from above, and that's a way of respecting God. And then she went on, and I was a very intellectual kid, so I always asked another why, and another why, and another why. And she explained the whole thing about God, and He created the universe. And this is before me learning the Bible. I was just first grade. So I remember going to my uncle's room. It was empty. I closed the door, and I had a discussion with God. I said, God, why do you want me to put this thing on? What is it about you that needs me to put this on? Do you want me to respect you? If so, why? Where are you? Why aren't you not seeing me? Why can't I see you? Can I talk to you? And I remember at one point I was really trembling because I thought he's going to be angry with me. He's going to show up and slap me in the face and say, who are you to question me? But it took me about an hour and a half. I have a vague memory of this. I actually opened the door. I went back to my grandmother. She was in the kitchen cooking. And I said, I'm not putting this on. And I'll put it on when God shows up. And she didn't take it well. And for months, I was under a lot of pressure to put it on. I didn't put it on because I couldn't explain to myself as a 6-year-old why I should believe that something exists if there's no proof that it is. At the age of 9, we moved to an Israeli kibbutz. Do you know what an Israeli kibbutz is?
Yeah.
It's a commune. It's the attempt of Russian immigrants who came to Israel to say, now we're going to make communism work. So they created those villages where there's no personal property. And from a kid's perspective, it was fun. I actually was separated from my family. You don't live with your core family. You live in a kid's house because you're the property of the kibbutz. Anyone here who read Anthem, which is Ayn Rand's novelette, it's a world, a dystopian world where the word I doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. So they have numbers. And I always ask kids, do you think that read Anthem, in middle school and high school, do you think it's fiction? And of course it is. And I said, no, I was Tal 31A in the kibbutz. That was my number to identify me. So anyway, long story short, I live in this kibbutz, no personal property, and when I was 13, my family from the city bought me this tape recorder, 80s, cassette, if you remember. I was so happy. I put it in my room. We shared a room, like 4 kids in a room. I put it in my room, started playing my cassettes on it. And a couple of days later, my teacher shows up and says, I have to take it away. And I said, what are you talking about? It's mine. He said, no, it's not equal to the other kids. You're playing your music, they can't. I have to take it away. And then the same mindset of the 6-year-old who had this conversation with God hit me again, and I said, wait, before you take it, why are you taking it? And he said, because it's not equal. I said, yeah, but who cares about equality? We're not equal. This guy's taller than me, and he knows to play basketball better than I do. We're not equal in any way. Look at us. And he said, no, but that's is our ideal. Who said so? Marx. Right? But can you prove it to me that there's an ideal called equality? Where is it? Can I see it? Can I see equality between men? And he said, no, it's an ideal. And the same kind of vagueness of who says who? And I said, you know what? Over my dead body, you're taking this. You're not touching the tape recorder. He went away. He chose not to kill me that day. And he came back about a week later and said, we had a committee. And we decided that you can keep it if you let all the other kids play their cassettes on your tape recorder. I said, yeah, fine, sure. Nobody touched it. And then I went to my mother and said, let's leave this place, or either we're living together as a family or I'm living by myself because I don't want to live in a place that, it's a place for ants, I call it in my Hebrew, or my 13-year-old vocabulary, I call it a place for ants, not for humans.
Yeah.
But it reminded me the same idea of, okay, somebody tells you something is an ideal, and you have to believe that on faith and no explanation. I always wanted to know what's true and what's false. I was a very intellectual kid, always asking deep philosophical ideas. I wanted to be objective, not subjective. I wanted to know things for real. And it always hit me that whenever we're talking about the external world, physics, math, engineering, you cannot make mistakes. It's right or wrong. Your 2 and 2 is 4, you get a check mark. You say 5, you get an X. It's not true. I don't care how you feel about this. I don't care who raised you. That is wrong. And if you don't build the rocket ship according to the objective laws of the universe, it will explode. There's no subjectivity here. But in the world of, and you have to be very, very precise, we have our formulas. They never fail us because we really understand the nature of the universe. But when it comes to the matters of the heart, whatever is inside of us, anything goes. If you were born here, you might be a Christian. If you were born in Israel, you might be a Jew, India, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever. It really depends on where you live. As far as I'm concerned, the world is everywhere. You know, the physical world has the same principles everywhere, no matter where you live. But we accept full subjectivity when it comes to our inner world. So what do we do about our inner world? We don't know. What I became in my teenage years is what we call pragmatic, in the sense that I don't really have any moral principles. I will just do whatever goes, because who knows what's good? You know, 10 commandments here, 517 commandments there. I just did whatever worked. So I chose the world of math. I chose the world of engineering because it was the only world that made sense to me. So I went and learned computer science, made a really good career out of it, moved from Israel to the United States, and this is what happened when I was 40 years old. When I was 40 years old, I was in the United States working for a multi-billion-dollar company. I was the VP, 5,000 people working for me, making a lot of money. Life's great, right? I had a little house, a little bigger than this, and a little car that was a little bigger than that, and a wonderful family, beautiful family. This is the multi-billion-dollar company I was working for. And if you ask me how my life was, yeah, it's great. It's really great. But it was more a hit or miss. I mean, sometimes it was great, sometimes it was not great, sometimes I felt great, sometimes I was a little depressed. It was really a mixed bag of ideas. And I could never see the connection between the things I loved and what I was told is good. I never saw a connection. I never really connect morality to what I wanted to do with my life. I felt guilty. I lost a sense of purpose, and I felt guilty about a lot of things that I wanted to do. I didn't like to volunteer. I didn't see the purpose in volunteering. I knew that making money is great, but other people tell me to feel apologetic about making too much money, and then I need to give some away. Again, the leftist in me was always apologetic about making so much money. Maybe what about the poor, and so on and so forth. So I was ridden with guilt. So I have to say it was like a midlife crisis for me. Not because anything specific. It's just that life is good. I do what I can. They told me to make money, so I'm making a lot of money. I have a family. Everything's great. But then I read this book. And if you read this book, it's a wonderful story. But what captivated me is not the story. It's the way this author writes about life. She has this certainty in her voice about, I know what morality means. And my morality, what she says implicitly, is very clear, and it makes perfect sense. You don't have to believe anyone. You don't have to take anyone's word. You don't have to take it by faith. I'll show you that, and I'll prove it to you scientifically, like you know math. It created a level of clarity in my life that I've never experienced. It explained to me the connection between my mind, this thing called human, and reality. So that is my experience with Ayn Rand. And after that, what I can tell you was a very violent year of me changing all my beliefs. I can tell you how hard it is to change your fundamental premises in life at the age of 40. A lot of people read Ayn Rand when they're 16, 17, or the Jesuits say, give me a child to the age of 7, I'll give you a man. Because you're establishing your operating system, your fundamentals when you're very, very young, and then you run your life with it. But at the age of 40 to say, I'm going to change my operating system and reboot everything is very violent psychologically. But I have to say, today I call myself the happiest man alive, not because I am happier than anyone else. It's just, imagine that you could say about yourself, I can't see a life where I'm more fulfilled. I will choose to do something else. I will be with someone else. I'll be somewhere else. No, this is the life, what I call my heroic journey. I'm living it, and I wish it to everyone around me. So let's apply this. I will start with politics, and we'll have time. I'll go to more of a personal view. What does it mean for liberty? We're all for liberty, right? I'm assuming if you're here that you are more for free markets, for less government control. So I don't have to give you all of that explanation, but I want to give you a different perspective. Let's assume you're living on an island. There's actually sound effects. And you love this island, though its way of life, but it's being attacked. Suddenly, winds of change are lashing from every direction. There are storms of change, and things start to feel different about your beautiful island, let's call it Australia, that you live in. And its traditions, its culture, is changing, and you don't understand why. You start hearing all kinds of new things, new words and terms that you haven't heard before. And people are starting to turn against each other. And suddenly new ways of thinking are coming in, and you ask yourself, how do we come to this situation? Where is this thing coming from? And not only ideas are coming, but they're actually implemented in reality. I mean, politically correct laws that they want to pass, cancel culture, they want to cancel people, and then people take it to the street. This is from America, I know, but I'm sure you can think about your Australian examples. So there are actions and reactions. And you see it from the left, you see it from the right, people are fighting each other, things are becoming more and more extreme. And so in the afternoon, you sit in your home and you ask yourself, what can I do about this thing? Why is my life changing? The island I love so much is changing. And you're frustrated and you're confused and you feel an urge to fight. And you want to change it, but you don't know what you're fighting. What am I fighting? So as you contemplate your strategy of how to react, your way of life is fading. It's changing. And I'm sure the people here are concerned about what's going to happen to the next generation. Right? So what does it have to do with liberty? Again, we're all for liberty, we're all for freedom. But we're losing, and we're losing big time. And I'm here to try to explain why we're losing, and the fact that the enemy is out-strategizing us. It's fighting at a level that we don't see, and it's winning in ways that we don't appreciate, and they will continue to win. I've talked in CPAC, everybody's like, it's going to be okay, the next president is going to be the great president, and blah, 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 and everything. No, it's not going to be okay. It's going to get worse before it gets better, because this is how history works. So you have your own Australian examples of what happens when government is encroaching on your life. And I gave a statement that, when I read about this thing, it was clear to me why this is a statement from the heart, because any reasoning mind would not come up with an idea like that. Really institutionalizing racism. So how do you fix this? And it's going to get worse, by the way. If you think this is the end of it, no, it's going to get worse and worse. You'll see things you never think were possible before. So in order to really understand what's going on, we have to dive a little deeper, to go a little deeper to understand where those things are coming from. So Ayn Rand had a very deep philosophical view on capitalism, on liberty, and she derives it from the nature of man. And she built a whole system that explains what man is, its relationship with reality, and as a derivative of that, how we should live as a society. It's not endowed by God or this invisible hand or whatever. She grounds everything in reality. So in a famous book that she wrote called Philosophy Who Needs It, she has an essay called What Can One Do?, where she talks about how can we really change the culture. And I want to read you a quick quote from it. If you're seriously interested in fighting for a better world, begin by identifying the nature of the problem. The battle is primarily intellectual, philosophical, not political. Politics is the last consequence the practical implementation of the fundamental ideas that dominate a given nation's culture. So she's saying you see politics happening, but that's not what's driving it. Philosophy is what's driving it. So let's explain and go back to the island. What actually is happening here is that you feel all of the winds that are happening here, everything that is happening on the island. But the island actually is not just the island. There's something that is happening way below it. That will work. Yes, your island is actually, this is the tip of an iceberg. What's really going on happens below. So this is what you're seeing, which is what's happening in the world right now, politics and everything around you. But there's like several levels below it. There's ethics, which is asking every person here all the time asks either implicitly or explicitly, what is the good? What should I do with my life? What is good? What is evil? Everyone wants to be good. Even the leftists, even the people who want to control your life and take your money, they think they're doing it for a good reason. I hate to say it, but Nazis thought they're going to fix the world for the better. Right? That's right. And below that, there's an even deeper field called epistemology, which is asking what is true. Are we here? Am I talking to you? Is a man or a woman? Or can we decide that a man can be a woman? Right? Is 2 and 2 4 always to everyone? And there's a war going on here. And then there's metaphysics, which is what is real. So this is what philosophy is. Philosophy actually answers those 4 questions. This is actually how should we live in society. So what's really going on? If we dive into this field of ethics, what we'll see is that there are a couple of ways to explain liberty. One is you follow the Austrian economics who say, you know, guys, let's do capitalism because it works. We'll be wealthier. Let's do that. Can't you see less government, more wealth, less government, more, life expectancy? Why not do that because it works? Nobody cares. So what? If this is not good, we're not going to do it. Here's what's really happening. The left has won what I call the moral high ground. They won the debate of who is good and who is bad. We are bad and they are good. They are the good doers and we are the greedy capitalists. They are for the common good and we are for ourselves. We are selfish. They are for the environment. We are for profit. How can you win? How can you win when every 15, 16, 17-year-old sees them saying, we're for the good. Those guys are for themselves. We are for others. They are for themselves. If we don't understand what's going on here, they'll always win because people will always do what's good, not what works, not what will make their life better, what they think is good. And this is good. The environment should be saved, so you're going to be net zero, and people will die? Yeah, why not? Some people will die. It's good. We're doing good for the environment. If we don't embrace individualism, if we don't understand and switch the moral compass to where it belongs, we will always lose. This is why Ayn Rand, in everything she wrote, always said, the core of evil is altruism, the otherism. We have been told by religions and by everyone else, other than maybe the founding fathers of America, that otherism is better than meism. That doing for others is always better than doing for myself. So, and it has nothing to do, that's what Ayn Rand says, nothing to do with how we care about others. It has nothing to do with compassion, has nothing to do with philanthropy. My institute is 100% funded from philanthropy. Ayn Rand was not against philanthropy, was not against compassion, was not again about giving to others and loving others. That's the most, the straw man attack. But she does say that you have to really understand what's going on. So let's talk about epistemology for a second. Let's go one step deeper to really understand why she's saying that selfishness properly understood, is the answer to free markets. So let me go to epistemology to explain to you why she is fighting for this word called selfishness. If we ever want to fight the fact that 2 and 2 is 4, and not may or not may be 4, which is what now they're teaching in California, I want to talk to you about what makes us human. And what makes us human is seeing the bottle here. Do you see a bottle? What is a bottle? Does a bottle have to have a specific color? No, right? A shape? No. What makes a bottle a bottle? Can you define it? Very hard, right? What makes a bottle a bottle?
And right, and then you can put something in it, it does not come out as long as it stays right up.
Yeah, it's a container, it contains something, yeah.
But I can think of many other things that will align with this definition. If I had like a water tank here, and somebody said, yeah, a water tank doesn't have a lid. So let's say we have a water tank with a lid. I mean, I don't want to get too deep, but your ability to see the bottle here, your ability to see any type of, let's say, pen that you've ever seen, or a table, right? That is a table in the back of the room. This is a table. They look completely different sizes. Your ability to see the one in the many, and this is starts in Aristotle, is your means of survival. Everything you see around you starts with the ability to see existence and unite them with the power of concepts. With several tens of thousands of concepts, which we call language, you can think, you can talk, you can envision a computer and make it. This is why we control the universe, or not the universe, the earth as we know it, and not lions or bears that are stronger than us. This human faculty is what gives rise to being human. And she creates a whole theory of concept formation of how we do that. How does a baby, let me ask you, what is the mother? Very simple. It's a woman who gives birth to a child, right?
Not anymore, apparently.
Exactly. She can adopt, right? And so it'll take us about an hour and a big whiteboard to really define what a mother is. That's the human function. So I'm going that deep because I want to explain to you why concepts matter so much, and why her book on ethics is called The Virtue of Selfishness. Let me show you what the left is doing and how it's winning the war. There's a thing she calls a package deal. A package deal is a word that in one concept, a table is a table. It's not a table and a chair, right? For that we have furniture, which is a higher concept. But a package deal is one concept that supposedly is describing one thing, but actually describes more than one thing. So when I say the word selfish, what you think of is two things, not one. One is you take care of yourself. Have you brushed your teeth this morning? I hope so. That's very selfish, right? That's very taking you put your clothes on, you tended to your family, you worked your garden, you take care of yourself. But there's another thing in the core of that word, which is not caring for others, disregard for others. When you put two conceptual common denominator, or roots, what you call the genus, it's called, two genuses in one concept, you cannot think about it separately. The reason why she wrote anthem, which is a word where the word I doesn't exist, is people don't see individuals. They cannot see individual because you don't have the word I. When you cannot separate taking care of self and not caring for others, you cannot separate it. If someone is doing something for themselves, you call it selfish. And it's not separated. Why? Do we have a word in the English language describing me taking care of myself rationally while dealing with others rationally? Do I have a word for that?
Self-reliant. Self-reliant.
Self-reliance, okay, it's two words. One, but yes, rational self-interest, 3 words, right? But no, we have selfish. And we were taught that selfish is great and bad at the same time. This is why we hate individualism. And we love otherism. Let me give you, and by the way, the fact that this is bad is coloring this as bad. So if you're caring for yourself too much, not so good, right? The mother says to the child, share your toys with the other kids. Why? Are you sharing your wallet with other people? From very early age, because of this effect, we are suspecting kids, or we're suspecting people who are too caring for themselves too much, with no relation to how compassionate they are, how, you know how we call the people who made America, right? Robber barons. They were the most philanthropic people in the world, you know? The Carnegie libraries, all of the United States, people were, but we still call them the robber barons. Why? Because they made money, greedy bastards. So we cannot separate this. The real epistemological way to define this would be taking care of yourself rational, which means that you're dealing with honestly and justly with yourself, and dealing honestly and justly with others. That is what she defines selfishness to be, which is, this should be your moral code. You only have one life, and you want to make the best of it. Be as selfish as possible, please. This is why she calls it the virtue of selfishness. And if we all be as selfish as possible, rationally, we will make more of ourselves, and as a result, make more to others. We will have more to offer to others. There will be more business. And the 19th century and the Industrial Revolution is a testament to the truthfulness of this morality. So she's a radical for individualism. She's a radical for selfishness. This is why she says, if we don't do this, then we lost the political battle. Because if you're for otherism, the left will always win. Let me give you another example. How do they really confuse you with environmentalism? What do you think when you hear the word environment? Do we mean wilderness, or do we mean human environment? Is this nature? Is this environment? Or is it the jungle environment? Because we cannot separate those things when we say the environmentalists, why do they say environmentalists and not naturalists? They took the word environment and made it wilderness. Now, when we're wanting to promote environmentalism, we don't think about let's build more classes, more concrete, more fossil fuels, more anything that supports human life. No, God forbid. Let's promote wilderness. This is why we're against fossil fuels, although fossil fuels are a condition for human life. So they're coloring green and making this bad. And she says, Rand, now observe that all of the propaganda of the ecologists, amidst all the appeals to nature and pleas to the harmony with nature, there is no discussion of man's needs and the requirement of his survival. Man is treated if he were an unnatural phenomenon. I have a friend who's in oil and gas, and he supplies sand for fracking of natural gas, which made all the oil prices and natural gas prices come down, because we now know how to release gas that is locked through rocks. So we break the rock and we release all the gases, and there are unlimited amounts, almost unlimited amount of gases in the earth. So we can be living forever with that. For that you need sand. He created a factory for sand, very fine sand. He bought it for a lot of money, and they won't let him harvest the dunes because there's a lizard somewhere. It was never seen, they cannot see it, they cannot catch it, but they assume that there is a lizard, so he cannot harvest the sand. Now that means that people will not get gas for cheap. They'll have to go for other more expensive, which means that people will have more expensive gas to save this. What gives them the moral right to put a lizard over humans. This epistemology. Another thing that Ayn Rand found out in the world of epistemology is what she calls not package deals, but floating abstractions. Words that have no grounding in reality. You make it up, and you say it's true, but they're not. Let's talk about equality. Can you show me equality? I'm a 4-year-old, or Tal, the 6-year-old that wants to see God, right? Where is it? Can anyone point to equality? Does it exist? It's a fabrication. Why doesn't Marxism work? Communism work? Because it's like saying gravity doesn't exist, let's all throw ourselves off a bridge and, think that we're going to float in air. No, it just doesn't exist. There are no two humans that are alike. The word equality in the context of man or outcome does not exist. It's a floating abstraction. And if you think about diversity, equality, inclusion of whom? Right? I was called black in Israel. I am black. Do I look black? This is black because my parents came from Africa, right, North Africa, and the people in the kibbutz came from Russia and Poland and Hungary. So I was black. So another warfare that the left is attacking us with is floating abstraction. It's word that could not be grounded back to reality. She says a political battle is merely a skirmish fought with muskets. A philosophical battle is the nuclear war. And she means that. I mean, if you want to ever change the culture, and I'll prove that by giving you an account of history, a quick account of history, you will see that real philosophy is what will change the world. If you go back to the age of reason, if we endorse rational self-interest, which is, again, I don't have a word, so I get 3 words, or take back the word selfishness in the true meaning of the word, and then promote liberty and individual rights, the rest will follow. Like it already did after the age of reason and the birth of America and the Industrial Revolution. And this is very optimistic for me because she says, in an intellectual battle, you do not need to convert everyone. History is made by minorities. Or more precisely, history is made by intellectual movements which are created by minorities. Who belongs to these minorities? Anyone who's able and willing actively to concern himself with intellectual issues. Here it is not quantity but quality that counts, and the quality, the consistency of the ideas one is advocating. And this is why I believe that the only way to change the world, the heavy lifting that the left has done in the last 150 years, is to create more intellectuals and philosophers and teachers who advocate the right philosophy. I don't know if you know, but the German philosophers coming from Kant, and I'll give you a quick history account, took over the universities of the United States in the late 19th, early 20th century. Took over. You could not find one philosophy department that is not completely controlled by Kantians and subjectivists. Kant said, when he wrote the Critique of Pure Reason, we have to end the Age of Reason, and he did. What we're living now is a decline of the Age of Reason. We are on the fumes of the Age of Reason. Technology is still moving forward, but not at the pace that it used to. If you lived in the 1860s, 70s, one day there would be electricity, the next day there would be flight. What are we having right now? A new version of the iPhone, something that we call artificial intelligence. I'm a computer scientist. There's no intelligence in our artificial intelligence. Don't believe it. It's statistics, and it has multiple glass ceilings. Don't be alarmed, but it's taking the world. It's not going to take the world anytime soon. So here, I want to give you a quick account of history to convince you that I'm right, that my hypothesis is right. Think about the world of history from a philosophical perspective, just to see that history is defined by philosophy. So there's really an explosion of wealth and progress when this man, Plato, creates the science of philosophy. But he was a mystic. He had his hand up in the air in the famous Raphael School of Athens, where he said everything we know comes from above. Right? It's a mystic revelation. He believed in the philosopher king, in the gods that will give us truth. And his student, Aristotle, said the opposite. No, man's mind, our ability to reason and understand the world with the power of logic is how we understand the world. And he created logic and math and science. He's the father of science. And we have an explosion of life expectancy and in any way you want to, GDP, whatever. The Romans take the become new Platonists and become more and more mystic, and then they fall to the barbarians. And then we fall to millennia of the Dark Ages that basically is ruled by Plato. Aquinas is, through the Egyptians, find the writings of Aristotle. It was gone. And so suddenly he starts reading Aristotle and saying, oh my God, this guy is right. We have the power of reason. And he's trying, unsuccessfully, to reconcile faith and reason. But what he did without knowing, he created the Renaissance of Da Vinci, of Michelangelo, of Galileo, of of Kepler, and of course the high mark, the scientific revolution of Newton. All coming from the rediscovery of the idea that man can know reality by the power of their mind, not by mystic revelations. And then, of course, through Bacon and Locke, we get Jefferson, who says, okay, now let's apply this philosophy to the world of politics and invent this idea called individual rights and put it in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence of a new world, a new country that is based on the most selfish concept. Your life is yours, your pursuit of happiness. Nobody gets to tell you how to live your life. You do what's good for you, and we don't touch you. And he creates of course, that leads to the Industrial Revolution of America, the explosion of technology, and all the quality of life you see around you is because of that freedom and the liberation of the human mind to say, go, think, be rational, make money, not to take it from other people, make new money, which means when you create something new, it creates more wealth, right? And on the same year that America is born, this guy, Immanuel Kant, writes a book because he says, I'm a man of faith, and faith is dying. I need to save faith from reason. This is why I'm going to critique reason by creating a new Platonist idea, which is the world does not exist. Everything outside of your mind is a mesh of atoms. When it hits your retina and goes inside your mind, you construct a world. You guys are not here. It's a fabrication of my mind. And this is why reason is futile. Reasoning on what? Everybody has their own. There's no way to know what objective reality is. Everybody has their own view. Everything is subjective. He destroys, he dismantles reality and reason with it. And he grows and grows in popularity. And through Hegel, who takes it to politics, and through Marx, who takes it to economics, he creates a new world of reality doesn't matter. We get to say what's true and what's good. By the way, Kant's answer to how do we know what's good if nothing exists? He said, categorical imperative, which means I will tell you what's good, which is duty. Whatever you're told to do. And that creates the bloodiest century, the 20th century of fascism. Because that is the inescapable derivative of subjectivism. Is because we know nothing, somebody needs to tell us what is good. And this is how you explain Hitler and Mussolini, and all the horrors. And then you've got a new philosopher. Her name is Ayn Rand. She builds on Aristotle. I think there are 4 mega philosophers in the world. Plato, Aristotle, Kant, who is sitting on the shoulders of Plato, and Ayn Rand, who's taking Aristotle to a whole new world. She does to Aristotle, I think, what Einstein did to Newton. Just takes philosophy to a whole new realm. And she's offering a radically new philosophy that says your life is yours. Your life is the standard of morality. Whatever promotes it is good. Whatever diminishes it, threatens it, shortens it, is the evil. This is why force is evil. If you want to learn more about it, I would read this book. If you want to learn a little bit more about her political philosophy, she wrote Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. And she says it's an unknown ideal. You don't know what capitalism is. Here in the room, I bet you most people don't understand what it is. Because you need to understand the nature of man to understand why capitalism is the only system. It's not let's try a little bit of that. Is the only system that aligns to human nature. Freedom, the ability to think. Because, let me jump to something, one more point that I want to make. Do I have 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump because you have to ask yourself, freedom from what? Why do we need freedom? And she shows you that a fist or a threat of a fist and the silencing you, not allowing you to talk, threatening you, right? Lying to you, imposturing as something different. What it does, it breaks the law of cause and effect to a human mind. And that destroys our ability to integrate. If you think you can come up with a new concept like a bottle when you're 4 or 3, or quantum mechanics when you're a little older, or figure out how to build a plane, you can't. Why did the Russian scientists move way slower than the American scientists? Is it because they're a different breed of animals? No, it's just that one scientist is working under compulsion and threat of force, and one is free. This is why America boomed and Russia, made a little bit of progress. So if you really understand the nature of man, if you really understand what is required for man to integrate the world through the power of concepts, and then through concepts create a vision, and from a vision say, maybe I'll create a computer, or a table, or a projector, or an air conditioner. This is what makes human human. And whenever you introduce force, you detach that capacity from reality, and it shuts down. Why do we put people in prisons? What's so wrong? What's so bad about being in a prison cell? You get food. You can read. You can do whatever you want. You got endless leisure time. Amazing. Why is it so awful? Because it takes away what makes us human, which is the ability to move, to think, to express ourselves in reality, right? And be human. It makes you an animal. And force makes you an animal. This is why you have to, and Ayn Rand is not an anarchist. Actually, she thinks anarchism is the worst of all. She said, I would rather live in Russia and not in Africa, right? Why? Because what you do with force, you put it at we call it the corner of the island. You put restrictions on it, because this is the monster. Remember, unleashing force is what destroys human beings, right? You put a lot of controls over it, and a government with a judicial system that allows you to arbitrate disagreements and conflicts in a rational manner, and you put it aside and you say, you don't show yourself, you in a retaliatory way, show up only when one person violates another person's rights, right? And we harm each other. That's the limited government she's talking about, and the founding fathers really got it. But in that constitution, in that even Declaration of Independence, there are still major moral cracks that the left has inserted itself through and exploded it, and now we're seeing America done. There's still some kind of a wall of defense that actually doesn't, as the more I understand the Australian political environment, you don't have the same defenses as America, and New Zealand doesn't have any, if I understand correctly. But individual rights is really at risk right now. So maybe my last sentence would be, if you want to make a better life for yourself, and I don't think I'll have time to talk about personal happiness, but a life for yourself and for others, and change the politics, you have to go down to philosophy, to ethics, to epistemology, to metaphysics, to ask yourself the deep questions of life. And again, I hate to say it, but the left has done it for many, many decades and centuries now. And this is why it's winning. It convinced everyone that they're right and we're wrong. And if we're going to apologize by saying, you know what, you guys are right, yeah, we should take care of everyone. And you know, the right in America blows my mind. It's like, yeah, taxation, let's tax everyone. Actually, Reagan and Trump created more deficit than any other Democratic president. They're all the same. Those guys want to control your pocket, those guys want to control your bedroom. Everyone wants to control you under this idea of their ethics. Rand is advocating for a full separation of government and ethics, government and economics. It has only one role, to protect individual rights. That's it. So, I don't know how to end on a positive note. You know what, I'll give you one more idea. Let's say that I snap my finger and the world out there is laissez-faire capitalism heaven. Okay? We fixed all the political issues in the world. Everything's great. What do you do now? What do you fight for? And she has this beautiful, Aristotle said that happiness is what we're fighting for. It's the meaning and purpose of life, the whole aim of end in human existence. And the point I want to leave you with is that it doesn't really matter what happens in politics. It doesn't really matter. What really matters is what's going on in your own life. What are you doing now? What work are you doing? What relationship are you forging? What are the values in your life that you are pursuing? Because all politics is just allowing you the playground to pursue values. And maybe in another lecture that you'll hear me talk, I give a whole account of Rand's view of how one should pursue their values to achieve this state of consciousness, prolonged state of consciousness that we call happiness. And it's pursuing your values. So as long, they take 20, 30, 40, 50% of our money, they don't allow us to do everything, they lock us down in a pandemic, but we're still not, in a prison cell. So as long as you have freedom, I think the main question in life for each and every one of us is how do we live the best life we can? And that's something that you can learn from Rand. The beautiful thing about Rand, she's both a novelist and a philosopher. So she gives you the character of Howard Rourke, the architect, the uncompromising architect, or Dagny, or John Galt, right, in Atlas Shrugged. And she also gives you books of nonfiction that explain it in a nonfiction way. So please read more Rand. The last thing I want to tell you is that this tour is all about creating more readership of Rand in Australia. We've opened a university 2 years ago. We have only 2 Australian students in our university out of 157. We want more Australian kids reading Ayn Rand and getting interested in philosophy in general, and hopefully with objectivism, which is Rand's philosophy, to learn more about how to truly fight for freedom. And then we want to ship them back to you so they will become the next politician and the next judge. I don't know if you heard about one of our graduates, his name is Alex Epstein. He wrote a book, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, which is completely driving the fight against environmentalism in the United States right now. It gives a moral backbone to the fight against environmentalism. So we want to create more intellectuals, we want to create more men of the mind and women of the mind to fight that battle. And so if anyone here wants to help us to buy more books and distribute more books of Ayn Rand to the Australian culture, please talk to Jonathan or myself. And thank you all for listening.
Yes, thank you, Tal, for what was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Just by way of thanks, I'd like to present you with a gift, which is Wokeism, Critical Theories of the Far and Left. This is the latest, just by way of explanation, this is
Wow.
the latest edition of the Western Australian
What
Jurist.
a great title for a book.
Oh, cheers. I hope you enjoy the read. So it has been bound up. It's the latest edition of the Jurist, been bound up as a book. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the read.
Thanks very much. And it's inscribed, so thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. We've got time for a couple of questions. I don't mind for letting me to. Okay, so we'll go with the two people who shot their hands up. So, yeah, just down the front here.
Cheers. I'm not as familiar with Ayn Rand as I should be because that was fantastic. I just want to ask, does she have a concept of obligation in her philosophy?
Obligation to oneself.
Uh,
Obligation to oneself. There's no, so Kant and of course religion tells you have moral duties. And they come from somewhere. And there are a set of rules and you need to follow them. She says why? She says who? Let's prove them. And she goes on to prove what supports a human life qua human life. So you need to reason, you need to think. And she says the ultimate moral decision is to focus or not. You can either hold the reins of your mind. You know that, sometimes you can float, you sit down, you're doing nothing, you're not thinking about nothing, you're not progressing your life in any way. By the way, it's fine if you want to relax and watch TV or whatever. But the human function is to hold the reins of your mind, to focus, to learn, to integrate, and then to create something. And this is why all of our heroes are men of industry, because that is what the human mind produces, a value, right? So your moral obligation is to think, to know yourself, and to pursue your values, otherwise you won't be happy. Happiness is your moral obligation, the outcome of what you need to achieve. Yes. I think that
I was out of the room for a little bit, so you might have covered a little bit of this, but I heard you at one point saying, you used the expression prove scientifically.
yes.
Now, I don't know if I was out of the room when you did that, because I haven't heard you prove anything scientifically. And
I'm not here to recount all of her scientific, what I call scientific proofs.
Okay,
You
so,
have to read them.
I do know a little bit about Ayn Rand, and as I said, I've watched the movies, but what bothers me somewhat in all this, it seemed to me that the philosophy is not founded on anything. It is floating. In all of science, of my understanding, the philosophical underpinning of all science are initial presuppositions, assumptions. There's no scientifically provable beginning point.
What is the question?
So, is this whole thing based on this? I like the ideas that you explain, but there has to be an underpinning. And I think that underpinning, if you understand those initial presuppositions, we can then identify what evil is. Evil is evil that's extrinsic to human beings. Evil that is a real thing. Mm-hmm. It's an absolute. And that is based on that.
Evil is absolute?
Yes, absolute.
According to what law is it absolute?
These presuppositions is what I'm talking about.
That's what she's challenging. She's challenging the fact that you are laying axioms that are not real axioms.
That's the point I'm making. You
Yeah,
can't
I
build.
understand the point you're making.
You
I'm just
can't
trying to
build it
explain
without-
because you said you know a little bit about Ayn Rand, not all of it. So if you
Well, I know a lot about philosophy, natural
right.
philosophy.
So
and science.
she is offering a new philosophy. And if you understand how she starts, the axioms of knowledge in epistemology,
Then what
it goes really, really deep. I mean, what is the law of identity, the validity of the senses, and the fact that everything you can call, why did she call her philosophy objectivism? because she's focusing on the idea that the relationship between the human mind and reality has to be objective. She calls it the primacy of existence over consciousness, which means reality exists first, and the human mind is part of it. And the way the human mind, there's a methodology by which the human mind observes reality through its senses, and then creates the senses into percepts that can never lie, by the way. If you see a straw inside of a glass of water, right, it's bent. Why is it bent? Because the light travels through the liquid in a slower speed than through air. So the angle of the light bends, and so you see a different angle. So the senses, the percepts, give you all the truth. Not what you think should be, but what it is. Then when you move to the conceptual level, this is where the errors start. So she goes very, very deep. My answer to you is go read
See,
the introduction.
so
to
if I can
object-
respond to your glass of water.
No. We will not solve the axioms of philosophy here. There's essays over essays over essays, especially in the Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, and a book called Objectivism: The Philosophy of Ayn Rand, where all the answers to the fundamental axioms of knowledge are proven step by step, completely in a scientific way.
All right, then answer this question. What is the first starting assumption? What is it?
The first is existence exists.
Okay, on that note.
So I will say one thing. An axiom, logically, axiom is something that in order to disprove it, you have to prove it. This is why it has to be an axiom. It's the
You
start of
can't
knowledge.
prove axioms
It's exactly.
by
So-
definition.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. This is the start of knowledge, you cannot prove it. So if you don't agree that existence exists, we have nothing to talk about, right? There are several other axioms that are derived from existence exists, which is A is A. In order to be, you have to be something. So that goes very, very deep. Now, what I'm saying is that there are answers to your question. You're asking a very deep question that really, eventually push people to believe that there are no answers. This is why it has to come from somewhere else. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll have to shelve all the questions. Tal will be here for half an hour. So we've got snacks, drinks out there. They're more than welcome to stay on. We do need to wind things up at 8, though. So for those of you who have questions, Tal will be
I'm
happy
here.
to answer.
Happy to talk
So
to you.
sorry about that.
Yeah.
And so
We
we'll wrap
can
it up
talk
here.
whenever.
Yeah, sorry to cut question time short.
Yeah, the video of this will be on freedomactivism.com in a few days' time.
No worries.
Yeah, or a couple of days'
So
time.
once again, please join me in thanking Tal.
During your talk, Augusto rang me
Yes.
and he asked me to say thank you very much for coming, and he's very sorry
Really appreciate
he's
that.
not,
Yes.
but he said thank you. And for the rest of you, his father is still alive, he's on his way to hospital, or was half an hour ago.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Thank you very much.
And he wanted to know, but you had caught it on the thing.
Of course, yes.
Let's
Yes.
thank you everyone for attending, and yes, please stay tuned for future events. Thank you.
I won't go into personal details. However, I'm getting to the other hand. I totally disagree with you on the matter of the left wing.
The left wing.
Yes, you're saying the left is dominating. And I think the evidence, actually, if you don't mind me suggesting, is the opposite. I mean, if you look, let's go to your world. The minimum average wage in America, in real terms, was about 1970, fell, and only recovered about 2 years ago, back to where it was 50 years ago. Right. Now, in Australia, we've had a situation where about 50 years ago, I mean, I've got the graph, I was showing, if I'd known what you were talking about, I would have brought the bundle of graphs with me. About 50 years ago, the distribution of wealth in the world was about, the top 10% had about 10%. That was about 50 years, and I've got the graph. Today, that top top 10% is getting about 90%. That was an evaluation. Now, I could go to...
Was it good or not?
The top 10% having 90%. Oh, I think that's rather unfair, don't you think?
Why? Because if you've got an Elon Musk who knows how to create rockets and self-driving cars and things like that, why would he not make you 3 times more than him?
But in a country like Australia, which is basically, we have little left about 6% of our country manufactures, against 12% in America, 18%. I mean, you got numbers on you. Now, we have an umbilical cord. We have an umbilical cord where about 3% of the population generates about 2/3 of our ability to buy cars, to travel overseas. I mean, it's really an extremely vulnerable country. And yet we continue to somehow justify that we have a shortage. We have a per capita GDP, you're talking like an economist, a per capita GDP which is below the national GDP. In other words, the national GDP is growing at that gradient, and the per capita GDP is at low. You understand that's the logic, right? So all the signs are that we have a dreadful situation where the left is financially, based on it, you can come up with some argument, is languishing in this country and in your country.
Left will always be strongest. Yeah, but it was is your president, say a right-wing president? Is America a right-wing? Is Europe right-wing? I mean, I think what you're describing is little blips on a graph that goes like this. Okay? So you're still seeing us grow because we were running on fumes of what used to be this kind of graph. Do you know what the GDP looks like in the 19th century? Decade over decade, tenfold, right? We went from huts to skyscrapers in 70 years. We went from below 40 life expectancy to over 70 in less than a decade. Now we're on fumes. I mean, what are we growing like 2%, 3%?
I don't want to make an economic
I'm just saying, I'm not arguing with you that there's still growth and technology is still evolving. Our life is way much better than the 19th century. But the ideas that are prominent right now, that are dominant, are ideas of altruism, ideas of collectivism, ideas of otherism. And if they hold the moral high ground, they will win, and they will win. Now it's true, you get a Trump in between, and you get an action and reaction. So you have those ups and downs, cycles that people talk about. But the overall trajectory, if you know mathematics, right? You can see it's are we going uphill or are we going downhill? We're slowing down. The government is not.
Well, all of that's true, but the conversation is totally without totally. Outwardly, it's totally aimed at reallocating the wealth to a small minority. It is extraordinary what is happening.
But the distribution
that's not right.
But here's the problem.
Government has no right.
The problem is discussing the distribution of wealth is the wrong discussion. The only discussion you should have
Next
is are we
government
freeing people up or are we taking their money away? If you free people up, you know what happens? Some of them make billions, some of them will be beggars, some of them will have health care, some of them will not have health. Some of them will live to 100, some of them will die at urgent, right? And this is a feature of freedom. It's not a bug, it's a feature. You will have, by the way, check it, the most inequality you have in the economy, the better everybody is. The better everybody is. Because it means that the giants of interest who create.
I found that extraordinary.
Okay, so read the book. You read a book called Equality Unfair, and see all this. I'm not an economist, but my
Side because we
read
need to rearrange
Equality
the
Unfair.
tables.
And all of the statistics that prove that the more inequality there is, the better everybody is in all the meaningful statistics.
Elon Musk is part of all the money he's able to generate. I have no problem.
saying it's
but we're living in a country where we have a man here who can say 15 houses every day because he's given it.
You'll get your chance, you will.
And 20 years ago, they tried to buy a whole town, if you know the place in Bunbury. Now that is, I obviously know who I'm talking about, Tricky Forrest. Now that's okay. Oh, he has the label entrepreneur. He is a man who has just... Sorry?
The question time, not an argument.
Yeah, okay, all right, maybe I should drop out. But look, I love Ayn Rand. It launched me into a different relationship with the world. But, you know, the conversation has to change. And it has to be in harmony with what you're saying.
Augusta, well, that's an honour, that is. No, Augusta is a good friend I am. So he wanted me to film this event tonight. So yes. I've known about 2 years. Father Abdelmalek would like to ask you a question. Yes.
They're very attentive. I'm originally from Israel. My predecessor came from Iraq, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco. That's a whole mix.
West North Africa.
West North
I'm from Egypt.
Egypt.
Yeah.
So very close.
Well, I've got two questions. Do we have a definition for pleasure, joy, and happiness?
Yes. Rand defined happiness. Well, joy is usually regarded to momentary joy or not long-lasting joy. I feel a sense of joy. My son is getting married. I'm joyful, right? Happiness is a prolonged state of. It's actually, she called it non-contradictory joy first. So there's no problem in your joy, but it's a prolonged state of mind. It's a state of mind when a man tells himself, I am good at living as me. I know who I am, I know what I love, I know what I respond to, and I'm pursuing my values in an effective, virtuous way. I don't lie, I don't steal, I don't cheat. Not myself and not others. And that creates the level of self-esteem that you can say elevates him to a state of prolonged happiness. She calls it what she calls a climate, not a weather. So her definition of happiness is that state of consciousness which proceeds from the achievement of one's rational values. I mean, if you want to be an architect and you go and learn architecture and you build buildings, that is a pursuit of happiness.
I've got a bit of a different definition for
Yes,
that.
yes.
Pleasure is sensual.
Exactly. I failed to say that. I agree with that. Yes.
Happiness is more or less social, like happy to meet you, happy to be with you, right?
But what about self-happiness?
Joy is what stems from inside.
Oh, I see.
Yes, so I'm always joyful.
I see.
You see, and I don't know your religion. Probably you are a Jew.
Yeah. So I was born a Jew, but I don't consider myself.
Okay. What Jesus said about this is, I will give you joy, and no one can take my joy away from you. So joy is not based on reason or based on, but it is based more on faith. If, as you said, if I believe in myself, then I'm joyful. If I don't, then I'm the most miserable person. This is my
so again, so we're very close but very far in the sense that I agree with it. It's internal. Nobody can give it to you. Nobody can take it away from you. It's a result of a process that you do, which is to define who you are and show that you are. What I don't agree is that it's a matter of faith, because if it was a matter of faith, it means that I can live in a basement and believe really hard, then I'm happy. But it will not work.
Again, this is the difference between a capitalist and a supernaturalist.
Yes,
Okay, so a capitalist will find joy in freedom from poverty and whatever. For Christian, for example, joy is freedom from sin. So if I live in the basement or wherever, I'm free from sin. I sit on the top of the mountain, as Augustine
And I
said.
see you're taking what your clothing tells me is you're taking your ideas very seriously, and I really appreciate people who take their ideas very seriously. I take my ideas very seriously. So I have a moral code, just to give you an idea. You and I are very close in the sense that I take my religion very seriously. I live by it. And I follow what I think it will lead me towards more happiness. So we're on the same track, although our philosophies are a little different.
Yes, you quoted what's his name, the Catholic philosopher Aquinas.
Yeah.
Aquinas was based also on Augustine in so many things, and Augustine defined slavery to fear and desires. So I'm enslaved to myself if I'm fearing something or I'm desiring something. So freedom stems from if I'm free from both those things.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I disagree with it, but I understand.
Okay, good. The other question, talking about reason, understanding the process does not mean I understand the cause of the process.
Sure.
So I understand that if I press the pedal on petrol, the car would
Goes, but you
go.
don't know how.
But I don't know how the motor. So understanding the reason behind why the straw is bent
in the glass.
does not mean that I understand why it was created.
Right. Sure.
So the reason.
But do you think it's impossible to know why light is created like it's created?
Without faith, no. But again, design or intelligence is a natural phenomenon that we observe.
Right.
You are an intelligent person.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You are an intelligent person. Some plants are intelligent, some animals are intelligent. So
Not as I am.
yeah, but we observe intelligence.
I observe you, and I'm completely in agreement that I don't know what creates your intelligence.
Yes, but because we observe intelligence, it is part of our natural world.
Yes.
We observe
Intelligence. So putting an intelligent source for my reasoning is not outside of the natural processes.
observation is the beginning of reason.
Exactly. So to reason only and take the path of naturalism,
It's not naturalism.
excluding the supernatural causes, would be,
So here's where I think we depart. There is an assumption that reason is limited. I don't think it is. There's no proof that it is. I mean, we never harnessed light before, now we harness light. Before, people said the world is flat. Somebody said, no, it's not. One said that the sun revolves around, everybody thought the sun revolves around the earth because this is what we observe. And then a guy says, no, you got it wrong. It's us that are spinning around. The church put him in house arrest. Why? Because what seems to be a phenomenon, inexplainable phenomenon, it's just a matter of time till reason will conquer it. This is why I never understood, and I told the story I think before you came about me rejecting the concept of God at the age of 6, is that I don't understand where did you see reason fail you so much that you have so little faith in it. I mean, with the power of our mind, with no need for any supernatural intervention, I can understand the beginning of the universe. I actually don't think there was a beginning. What light is.
you are a scientist, I believe.
I am not. I'm an engineer more than a scientist, but I understand. I learned a lot of
You
physics.
must understand, or you must have realized that most cosmological models predate or say that there is a beginning of the universe. Except for
It's a theory. It's a theory. They don't claim it as knowledge yet. There's a theory called the Big Bang. There's a
theories.
theory called quantum mechanics. But it's not proven yet. The world, the way that knowledge expands is that we take the knowledge that is already proven and we build deeper hypotheses. And then with measurement and experiment, we can actually see that it aligns with everything. So we can call it knowledge, or it's still a theory. Big Bang and all of the...
I like your definition of reason, that it has got no limits. And if anything has got no limits, then it must be an absolute.
I don't know what you mean by absolute.
Infinite.
Yeah. It's not infinite in the sense that it has no identity. It has identity. It has a specific nature. I'm just, I'll take it back. It's not infinite, it's unlimited.
What's the difference?
The difference is that we don't know the limits.
What is unlimited?
Unlimited means that I don't see a barrier that will say this is where reason will stop being effective. So we thought that, we found light.
What's the difference between unlimited and infinite, mathematically?
No, it's very infinite. Yeah, infinite is a physical phenomenon. Infinite distance.
Unlimited is physical.
Unlimited. Let me try to find a better word. There are no barriers standing in front, and I have to think about a better word. And there's no barriers standing in front of the power of reason and integration to understand the world in deeper and deeper ways. So before we were able to make very simple tools, and now we make computers. Right? It gives you a proof that man's reason was at this level. Now it's in this level, and it's going to continue to go all the way to.
Sorry.
Yes.
The reason never changed. It is the technology that improved, because we built on each
I
one's
agree with you. I mean, the methodology is the same methodology.
Yes.
Reason is reason.
The first man was very clever, very intelligent, has got the same reason as us. Technology is different.
I agree. That I agree. It's not that they were primitive or something.
Yeah.
I mean, Newton, you can argue that Newton and Aristotle, people that lived thousands of years ago, made the most incremental leaps of knowledge.
Intelligence is going down, by the way. Collective intelligence is picking up. Yeah, but human intelligence...
I don't believe there is such a thing as collective, because there's only humans in the world, not...
Collective human intelligence.
But that doesn't exist. You have your intelligence, and I have his intelligence, and he has his intelligence. There's no mystical entity.
I'm talking about our
shared knowledge.
Shared knowledge as intelligence. Yes.
That's for sure.
So our intelligence as humans, because of again, ideology, because of education, because of mutations, is not prospering. But shared knowledge is prospering. Yes. What you called unlimited reasoning doesn't matter whether it is absolute or infinite or unlimited. We call it the original reason. The reason that input reasons in our mind, because information needs a source of information, needs intelligence to put information, and we are all working with built-in blueprints.
Yes, that's true.
So that's
Sorry
also...
for a rude interruption.
Thank you. I really appreciate
So good to have you around. It's magic.
Thanks for coming again.
Thank you, and thank you for spreading the word.
Thank you. I really
Great
appreciate that.
thing.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All the best.
This computer
Yes.
would not work without an external intelligent source to put the data in here.
Yeah.
We cannot work without an intelligent source putting the data in us.
That is your belief?
Yeah. You talk about
Thank you very much. You are a man of thought, that's for sure.
Yeah, thank you very
You're
much.
talking about the soul, the container, you see. That's the soul in the bottle, possibly.
Thanks for following
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Shukran. Yes. Yeah,
Thank you very much for
no worries.
hosting us today. Thank you for the lecture as well.
Thank you for the extra footage. Yes.
Yes, that was an interesting discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Father.
Thank
It's
you.
really a
God bless you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
No worries. Oh.